Action.
So when I first saw this, as I'm pretty sure most of you are, I was really confused. I actually thought that maybe like the video jumped back and I was watching the same scene again until the other character started talking and saying that she'd been there yesterday too. And so the pacing and editing of this sequence really foreshadows most of the rest of the film. It's very evident from watching the sequence that from the start, Mima's already on edge. This is emphasized by her stances and the fast-paced tracking of her movements in the moment where she attempts to chase down the imposter. A clever juxtaposition of the two characters as pop idol Mima receives smooth, flowing tracking shots, and real Mima receives unbalanced framing and shaky camera movement up until she wakes up in her bedroom with Rumi. This shows the start of Mima's mental deterioration, especially emphasized when she wakes up in the same scene twice, her mind distorting her acting role with reality. There is also very smooth transitions that make it feel as though a scene is not ended but is one continuous sequence, such as the part in which Mima speaks her dialogue from the show to Rumi and is suddenly mentally awoken to being on set. This director specifically is most known for making these transitions because he works like they drew this frame by frame on actual paper, and he worked with making these smooth transitions, like the scene where she's speaking and it suddenly switches to her being on set, or the transitions between her being like him saying action and then her face appearing. Okay. And for the shots and production design, at the moment she begins chasing the pop idol version of herself, Mima does certain things that foreshadow or symbolize something deeper that will come up later in the film. One can see this in the shot where Mima looks up into a mirror and reacts in fear, not believing it to be herself for a few seconds. This foreshadows her disassociation with her own personality, confusing her past self for the real Mima, as she has begun to regret the actions she's taken in becoming an actress, and feeling as though said actions are creating an entirely different person than she knows herself to be. Another shot that foreshadows what is to come is the shot where she's seemingly hit by a truck only to wake up to reality. Throughout the film, it's consistent that bright beams of light signify to her the spotlight that she received from her audience during her performances as a pop idol. And now the negative attention is figuratively killing her, like a truck would be if it hit her, and is ultimately how she almost dies at the end of the film. Finally, the significance of red in the scene is insurmountable and a very subtle nod to the plot twist that happens at the end of the film, even though I don't know if I should go into that because that's like huge spoilers for this movie. So I was going to ask you if I could talk about that.
I mean, it's up to these guys. Do you mind if she spoils it?
You guys are spoiled?
Go for it. Yeah.
Alright, so the character Rumi, she's wearing like I'm going to go to that shot right now. So like the character on this side, she's wearing red lipstick and a red shirt, and it sort of gives a nod to the fact that at the end of the film she sort of switches the role from becoming her support to like the villain, as she's herself has a personality disorder and sees herself as Mima, as the pop idol. She's the one who's been posing as her online and confusing her to the point where she doesn't even think that's herself anymore. And at the end of the film, when the truck goes to hit her, she's wearing like her costume from when she's like a pop idol, and she sees, you can tell how misguided her mind is, because when the truck is coming to her, instead of reacting like she did, she like raises her arms like that, like she's in a spotlight, and hear like applause in the background. And it's like a very clear contrast to how she recognizes that her mind is deteriorating, but she's not aware that she's not actually the other persona. And I put that here, that it foreshadows the shot in the future with her getting hit by the truck. And then the reflection here of her looking at herself into the mirror, it says a lot in that one shot, because like she reacts so strongly to seeing her own reflection because she doesn't realize that it's herself anymore. And that's exactly what's happening with this imposter character, which I think was, that shot itself was pretty clever to demonstrate that. Okay.
This is wonderful. I definitely see the Black Swan comparison. Yeah, if you watch it, you'll really appreciate Black Swan having seen this. and knowing that there's a connection. So yeah, I definitely see what you're talking about. Any questions? It's a very thorough presentation. I can see why you like this so much. Yeah, Shiva?
Oh, never mind.
What does, besides, Rumi wearing red, what else does red represent in the
So
movie?
like whenever the character is in distress, like can I go back to the
Please.
scene? Like if you look on earlier, oh that's I forgot this is the movie. Like here you see the pillars of red surrounding the
幻想が実体化するなんてありえないもの。
like you can see in shots with like the more villainous characters in the film that there's always red incorporated into somehow, and like this guy becomes like a stalker. I think it's like super interesting because the director demonstrates different types of personality disorders. So he is like he thinks that the old version of her is separate from this new actress version of her, like the other two characters. So he follows the whims of the character who's the one with the red lipstick, Rumi, and he follows what she says. So he's sort of part of that whole that narrative of like she's a completely different person, and like the red symbolizes that in the shot that he's part of her whole plan. And then later on when she comes to check on them in the room, she's surrounded by red here too, as she's facing off her enemy basically, and. I'm not gonna do that now, but there's like a lot of different shots throughout the film where she's always surrounded by red when a conflict is happening. And I think that's like really clever because it's so ironic to the title of the film, which is called Perfect Blue. And it's the exact opposite of what's happening in her life. But when she's not in reality, like in this shot, like you see how she's, in this, she's like surrounded by blue, and like suddenly it's changed because when she's not in reality, when she's not herself, it becomes like the perfect scenario. If that makes sense.
Gotcha. So red is like her danger is
Mhm.
far from perfect as she can get.
Yeah.
Hence,
And do you feel like this movie was like kind of like making people aware of personality disorders, or do you think it was like used as a plot device to glorify personality disorders?
I think that the film was not glorifying personality disorders. I think it showed a lot into the mind of a person with a personality disorder because there's a lot of things that that happen in the film that I've seen are accurate to people with personality disorders because I have people in my family who have those sort of issues, and I feel like it's a good eye opener on how it can affect your psyche and how you see yourself so easily, where like with a snap of your fingers, like you won't even know who you are anymore at that moment. And I think that he really pulled it off well, not just in this film, but in his other films like Paprika. He captures that really well, and it's and in his other film, Millennial Actress, like her confusing her different, it's actually very similar to this, but she's like older and looking back on her roles. He's very consistent with being able to capture the turmoil that these characters face going through these things instead of like romanticizing it as like a drama. You know what I mean? It's like instead of that, it's like looking into the mind of the person.
excellent. Thank you so much, Ashley. All right, let's cut. And turn